Is India moving towards one nation, one wage? It was 6 o'clock in the morning. A construction worker reached the site keeping his tiffin in his torn bag. On the very same day, another worker doing the exact same kind of work in another corner of the country was working under the rule of nearly 5 times higher minimum wage. There was cement dust on the palms of both, the same load on the backs of both, the same exhaustion was going to bring the evening for both. The only difference was that one state was looking at him at a lower price and the other state at a slightly higher price. Right here the question arises. Is such a time coming soon in India when a worker doing the same kind of work gets a legal minimum dignity in any part of the country? Or is one nation, one wage just a catchy line behind which the real story is something else? The central government is moving towards a national floor wage, but it is important to understand that this is not a plan to implement identical salary across the entire country. This is actually like drawing a legal line on the ground of wages. No state will be able to go below that line, but there will be freedom to go above it. Meaning if the minimum wage in some state is already higher, it will not decrease. But where wages are very low, the system there might have to rise up to the worker's basic dignity. On paper this seems simple, but in a country like India where every state's economy, inflation and jobs are different, this decision can become a very big twist. First of all, look at the life of that worker, for whom daily wage is not an economic term but daily survival. If work is found in the morning, ration will come home in the evening. If work is not found, the child will ask, "Why didn't milk come today?" and the father will remain searching for an answer. In India, minimum wage is not just a salary issue. It is an issue of the kitchen, rent, medicine, school notebook, electricity bill and dignity. But for a long time, the minimum wage system remained so fragmented that an ordinary person just couldn't understand what his legal right was. A different rate in one state, a different rate in one industry, skill categories different, zones different, and on top of that, compliance weak in many places. This is the very reason why discussion about the national floor wage suddenly becomes important. This is not a promise to make the worker rich, but an attempt to stop very low wages. Under the Code on Wages 2019, the central government will fix the floor wage, and according to PRS analysis, minimum wages will have to be kept above that floor wage. Now right here a myth breaks. If the center fixes 500 rupees per day floor wage, and in some state, there is already a 700 rupees minimum wage, then it will remain 700 rupees there. But if in some place the minimum wage is below 500 rupees, then the state will have to take its wage structure up there. Therefore, calling this one nation, one wage will not be completely correct. The correct phrase would perhaps be one nation, one minimum benchmark, meaning not the ceiling of wages but the floor will be fixed in the country. The upper floors will remain according to the economic reality of different states. Now the question comes, why did the government feel the need for this right now? Because in India, the wage gap for the exact same work has many times been shocking. Giving the example of 2023 data, Financial Express wrote that the minimum wage of construction workers was reported up to 176 rupees in Nagaland and 856 rupees in Tamil Nadu. Imagine the same construction site, the same brick, the same cement, the same sun, but such a big difference in legal wage. This is not just a difference in numbers. This tells how much the value of a worker's hard work changes along with geography. Many people will say that states have a different cost of living, so wages will be different too. This point is correct, but the question is, can any wage be below basic survival? The national floor wage is an attempt to search for the answer to this very question. It says that no matter which state it is, wages should not fall below a minimum human line. This idea is not new. In 1991, the National Commission on Rural Labour had suggested a floor-level wage. Later, the National Floor-Level Minimum Wage came in advisory form, and according to a Parliament answer, it was revised up to 176 rupees per day in 2017. But back then it was like an advice. States could be told, but legal compulsion was not that strong. Now the story changes. The Code on Wages built a path to turn the floor wage into a statutory provision. Meaning what was earlier a benchmark of moral pressure can now become legal pressure. And this is the big turning point of this whole story. The Code on Wages is not limited merely to the floor wage. It brings the old 4 wage-related laws under one umbrella. An attempt has been made to make wage regulation simpler by combining the Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act, and Equal Remuneration Act. The biggest change is in coverage. According to the PIB fact sheet, the code extends the statutory right of minimum wages to all employees of both organized and unorganized sectors. Earlier, the protection of minimum wage was limited to scheduled employments, due to which a large workforce remained outside. Now in theory, permanent workers, contract workers, temporary workers, casual workers and part-time workers can also connect with this safety net. But between theory and reality, there is always a dark alley. And the name of this alley is enforcement. The law can say that the wage should be this much, but if the worker doesn't even know what his right is, how will he demand it? Imagine a workshop in a small town. The owner makes payments in cash, doesn't give payslips, doesn't count overtime separately. The worker feels that this is the market rate. He doesn't even know what minimum wage is notified in his state. Now even if the national floor wage comes, will it reach that worker? This will be the real test of this reform. Because India's labor market is very large, but a major part of it is informal. Fewer paper contracts and more verbal agreements run there. In many places, the worker is afraid to make a complaint. The fear is that, if a voice is raised, work won't be found the next morning at all. This is the very reason why merely making a law will not be enough. Along with it, awareness, inspection, digital records, and a reliable path for grievances will be essential. A study reported minimum wage non-compliance in India as a serious issue, and in some categories violation rates were found up to 90%. Meaning the problem is not just of fixing wages. The problem is of getting wages paid. Now look at the other side. Employers will also ask that if wages suddenly increase, cost pressure will come on small businesses. Imagine a small factory owner whose margin is already low. Electricity expensive, raw material expensive, competition fierce. If he has to increase wages, he will increase prices, cut staff, or run towards informality. This is the delicate balance of policy. But there is another side to this picture too. If some employers win competition by giving very low wages, fair-paying employers go into loss. The national floor wage can stop such a race where cheapest labor becomes the business advantage. Because if there is a minimum legal baseline, competition will have to be done not just by cutting wages but through productivity and efficiency. Now comes the inflation angle. In India, the cost of living is not the same everywhere. According to a PIB release on the Economic Survey 2025, retail inflation in Kerala and Lakshadweep went above the RBI's 6% upper tolerance band, while in remaining states, average inflation remained in the 2 to 6% band or below it. The meaning of this is clear. If inflation is different, a single national number will not seem equally fair everywhere. That is why a path for geographical differences has been kept in the code. The government can also think of different floor wages for different regions. Here policy becomes smart but complicated too. Because as categories increase, understanding compliance can become difficult. The worker will ask, which floor wage applies to me? The employer will ask, which zone does my unit come under? And a new responsibility will come before the State Labour Department to convert confusion into clarity. This is the reason why the national floor wage is not just an economic reform but an administrative reform too. If the notification is not clear, the awareness campaign is not strong, and enforcement remains weak, this reform will shine in files, not in the worker's pocket. Now look at the story of a migrant worker. He comes to Delhi from Bihar, then goes to Haryana for construction, and sometimes works at a site in Maharashtra. His life moves between states. But his rights change in every state. The national floor wage can give him at least a basic assurance that wherever he goes, wages should not be below a national legal floor. This is psychologically important for migrant workers too, because in migration the biggest weakness is the information gap. The owner knows the local law, the contractor knows the rate, but the worker often knows only this much: will work be found today or not? If the floor wage is widely publicized, a reference point can come into the worker's hand. But then that same question comes back: will that reference point even be enforced? Right here the role of states is important. Even after the national floor wage, states will continue fixing minimum wages. If there is more industry in some state, higher cost of living, higher skill demand, it can keep wages above the floor. Through this, the federal balance is saved. The center fixes the bottom line, states make rates above according to their local context. This arrangement sounds balanced, but in this, politics, economics and compliance, all three will collide. Low-wage states might have to increase wages. High-wage states will say that we are already above the floor. Businesses will ask whether, along with wage increase, productivity training, skill development and compliance simplification will also be provided. Workers will ask whether this time the law will truly come down to the ground or remain on the wall as just another poster. Now a quiet revolution is hidden in this story as well. Minimum wage cannot be seen only through the eyes of a male industrial worker. For domestic workers, sanitation workers, security guards, delivery support staff, small shop helpers, construction labor, packaging workers, wage protection holds a different meaning for everyone. Many women workers accept low wages in the informal sector because they feel this is all that is available. If the universal minimum wage right and floor benchmark are implemented properly, pressure can increase on wage discrimination and underpayment as well. But for this, records are required. Digital payments, payslips, attendance, contract clarity, and complaint mechanisms will be essential. Where payment is in cash and the relationship is informal, the law needs proof. And without proof, the worker often becomes weak. Therefore, the real power of the national floor wage will unlock only when the worker knows, the employer keeps records, and the state takes action. Now, there will be a question in the mind of the audience. Will everyone's salary increase due to this? The answer is no. In states or sectors where wages are already above the floor, an immediate salary jump will not be necessary. The benefit will mainly be in those places where notified minimum wages are below the proposed national floor. Meaning this reform will not give everyone an identical raise, but will try to bring the worker standing at the very bottom a little higher up. Now, will inflation increase due to this? Some economists will say if wage cost increases, an impact can come on prices. But on the other side, the purchasing power of low-income workers will increase, due to which local demand can become strong too. If a worker gets a little more money, he doesn't hide it in the stock market. He spends it on ration, medicine, children's needs, and at the local shop. Therefore, wage policy is not just a cost, but a demand story too. A poor man's income directly circulates in the local economy. But if the wage increase happens very fast and without support, small firms can move towards informal hiring. This is the risk. The real art of policy lies in this very balance. The worker's dignity should increase, but an unnecessary shock should not come on jobs. Now the question is, how much should the floor wage be? This is the most difficult part. If it is very low, the reform will seem symbolic. If it is very high, concern regarding compliance and employment will increase. PRS also noted that while the final rules state the broad basis of the floor wage, such as food, clothing, housing and other factors, they do not clarify detailed calculation norms. Meaning right now the biggest suspense is how the actual number will be fixed. Will it be linked to calorie requirements? To household size? To CPI? To regional inflation? To skill category? Or will a mix of all these be formed? Until this formula is transparent, the debate will not end. Trade unions will say the wage should be close to a living wage. Employers will say affordability and productivity should be considered. States will say our local conditions are different. And workers will say we need at least enough so that at the end of the month we don't have to fight both hunger and debt. This is what makes this policy human. This is not just a notification, it is the monthly calculation of crores of households. A security guard is standing at the society gate at night. A housekeeping worker cleans the office in the morning. A helper lifts boxes in a warehouse. For these people, the floor wage does not mean macroeconomics. It means, will the child's fees go on time? Will money have to be borrowed during illness? Will food remain after rent? Will asking for wages feel like begging? If the national floor wage truly works, it can draw a minimum line of dignity in India's labor market. But if enforcement remains weak, it will remain a beautiful phrase that will be spoken in seminars, and the worker will return to the old rate again. Therefore, the real question is not one nation, one wage. The real question is whether one nation, one minimum respect will be able to be formed or not. Because wages are not just the price of hard work. Wages tell how much respect society gives to a job. The hands that build cities, lay roads, keep houses clean and run factories, their value should not fall very low. The national floor wage might not solve every problem. It is not a magic solution for unemployment, inflation, skill gap or informality. But it can certainly be a signal that India does not want to let wage competition fall to the bottom. Now the story returns to that construction worker who came to the site in the morning. If the new system is made right, perhaps the cement dust on his palms will remain the same, but a little trust will be added to the evening's wages. Perhaps he will feel for the first time that above his state, his contractor and his employer, there is a national line too. And perhaps this is the biggest payoff of this reform. Salary will not be identical across the whole country, but the question of minimum dignity has now come onto the national table. Ahead, the real drama is hidden not in numbers but in implementation. Because the power of law is proven not in the gazette, but in the worker's pocket. If that pocket truly changes, even if one nation, one wage doesn't become true, one nation, one fair floor can become a big turning point in India's labor history.
If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.